Welcome back, guys. Today we're looking at Alpha Model's brand new 812 Competizione. Alright, so in the box here, I'm going to open this up. Now this is one of those limited release kits that Alpha Model is offering. I believe they're doing only 100 of these. So first thing on top here, we've got our instructions. So the usual 3D diagram, and then the parts layout. So you've got all your resin parts here, the rubber tires and whatnot. Some of the smaller bits, so seat belts and the screws for mounting the chassis plate to the body. You've got all your photo etch stuff here, your acetate windows, and then we also have our decal sheets and some metal transfers. So fairly simple. Usually works from the inside out with a lot of these Alpha Model kits, so you're working on the interior first and getting all of the photo etch down, getting everything primed, and then painting stuff separately. So it does take a bit of planning, but if you kind of put your steps in right, so take your resin part and then put the photo etch on top of it that does need to get painted, and then go ahead and put all your colors on. But it's fairly easily laid out, and looking at reference photos should give you an indication of what needs to be painted what. Then after that, you're kind of moving on to the exterior and all the extra little bits that go on that. Photo etch grills and whatnot, and all the smaller PE details. And then finishing off with the chassis and clamping that down together. And then of course your decal placement guide here on the side. So we'll go ahead and start opening this up. Again, these are packaged really nicely just to prevent damage. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bags of parts. So in here we've got some extra tires, and we've got tires already mounted to the rims, some small internal details, more interior parts, mainly the dashboard here, exterior bits including that rear diffuser and the front splitter, and then we've got our small seat belts and the mounting screws, and then as well all your clear parts for the lenses and whatnot. And these are cast too. These aren't, they're 3D printed, but then they're finished off and put into a mold and cast, so they have a nice smooth finish on them. Under another layer of plastic wrap, we've got your photo etch, your decals, and the window transfers as well in there. And these are, again, pre-painted window frames, so there's a main cut around the outside, and then there's some small bits that are just attached to keep it on there. And we'll show you how to properly install these, so that way there's you don't get a lot of fingerprints on them. And that's probably one of the most satisfying things, is getting to peel off the sticker just before the model's finished. And then last but not least, we've got our decals here. So these are all the carbon that gets laid on. We've got some interior carbon pieces here, and our stripes as well. So those will be lovely to look at. And then at the bottom we've got our 812 Competizione cover for the box. Not sure why this isn't put into it, but it's here if you want to display it. I think I kind of like that better. Finally, the last key part to this is the body. And this again is also wrapped in bubble wrap to help protect it during shipping. And I'll say I've had a number of kits shipped over from Alpha Model overseas, and during their several weeks in transit, you know, I've only had one have a little nick in it, and that was just a sharp part that was unavoidably able to break, but it got fixed really quickly. So nothing against Alpha Model. So we have the body here that gets shipped in 3 parts. So we've got our chassis plate here. We have our interior tub that will have all of its accessories dropped into it. And this one also, you can see, again, planning it out, part of it is actually going to be part of the wheel well. So usually I end up blacking this out because there's no suspension detail added in here. So I'll just end up using just a matte black just to cover it. And then the body itself. So on the inside of the body, a lot of other kits don't have this. Just kind of like the actual molded in details. So you've got your headrests, or your headliner, and then your sun visors and stuff like that molded in. And then as well, there's the detail of the actual B pillars and A pillars. They've got the correct thickness, so it's not just like a thin piece of plastic where you can see a lot of the window edging. So that's the key factor in having those clear acetate sheets, is that it looks very, very in scale. And then when you've got those 3/4 value shots, you know, the A pillars have and the B pillars have the correct thickness to them. So, and then we've got all the rest of the detail in the body. Looking at all the panel lines here, they're all extremely fine and crisp. Obviously there might be some parts of it with a little bit of a mold bleed out. That's just the case with any sort of cast kits. You know, you're going to have the flash or the mold seam with a lot of the plastic kits, and that you've got to clean up. With the resin kits, you're with such fine detail, you know, and limited to the types of resins and their curing times and whatnot. You're going to have partial bleed offs with that in some of the panel lines, but you capture a lot more detail, and then especially on a lot of these complex shapes and curves, you don't have a mold seam line. So, you know, pluses and minuses to both, but I think I prefer when the castings are done. And I especially like how Alpha Model's doing these modern kits, and then some obscure things, just something to vary off of what's regularly available on the market. You know, you can capture really thin stuff like this really, really well. As far as, you know, a lot of people saying, well, why don't we have engine detail? Why don't we have chassis detail? You know, it's kind of a choice of the manufacturer. And, you know, a lot of people say, well, there's so much more resin here. Well, the reason why a lot of these, all of these Alpha Model resin kits have that, all that bulky extra resin, is because it adds structural rigidity, and it also prevents a lot of the warping that happens when resin ends up losing its moisture over time and cures. So some things might, you know, twist or bend or buckle. A lot of that is mitigated by having a lot of that extra resin in there to strengthen up the actual body of the vehicle. So again, very, very nice. You know, we're going to have to go ahead and obviously spray a guide coat down on here, and we're going to see where there's any little dips or divots. You know, there's some mold release or some mold release powder that may be in here. I can already feel some little nibbles here on the and occlusions on the smoother part. So guide coat's going to help us figure out where we need to focus our attention, and yeah. So that is the review for the 812 Competizione. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for us starting to build this. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.